Everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is more of the DIY baby milestone blanket. This is where we're going to place the letters or the numbers and we're going to embroider them on. So the first thing I want to just show you that I have this piece of fleece. This piece of fleece was a remnant, but I searched baby blankets and they were roughly 30 to 40 inches was a crib blanket. Some were 50, 60 inches, depending on what exactly you want for your baby. But I just picked a 30 by 40 inch blanket. So what I've done is to help me measure this out. I don't know that anybody has a 40-inch cutting mat. I'm kidding. So what we did was we folded it in fourths. Okay, so we're going to make sure once we have it in fourths, we're going to measure. It's going to be 15 inches wide by 20 inches long. It's going to be from the center fold, basically where there is no raw edges anywhere, is that one corner where there's no raw edges. That's your center point. So you want to measure 20 inches from there on the long edge and 15 inches from there on the short edge. Plus, here's the key, plus your seam allowance. You can give yourself an inch seam allowance if you have enough fabric, if you want to, whatever you want to do. Okay, again, this is one of those things that there are rules. There's no exact rules. There's guidelines, but there's no rules. That's really what I meant to say. So we're going to use that folded fabric or the fabric's folds to basically figure out our placement. Again, there is no steadfast rules. I have seen these blankets where numbers 1 through 6 are on the left side of where the baby would lay and numbers 7 through 12 are on the right side where the baby would lay. I just really wanted to do a circle, sort of in a clock motion. I just thought that that would be the most appealing to me, basically. Who else am I going to please? The baby? Baby's not interested. She just wants to be soft and comfortable. Thank you. We've already got fleece, then we know it's going to be soft and comfortable. So what I've done is I've marked with straight pins the folds, okay, so then I know when I open it up, I'll know where the center line is and where basically the center horizontal line and the center vertical line are. And then what I'm going to do first is place the 12. I'm going to place the 12. I'm not trying to be like it's a random number. There's no exact positioning, but what I've done is I've taken the width of my ruler, which is 6 inches, and I've laid it across the top. And right where the center of the blanket is, where that pin lies at that 15-inch mark, well, really it was at the 16-inch mark because I left an inch seam allowance. That's where I put the 12, right under the ruler. So then this way I made sure that when I did from the bottom up, I just laid the ruler down there again, and I left 6 inches from the bottom, and that's where I placed my 6 on that same midpoint where the safety pin was. And then when I did the 9 and the 3, you want to do them across. It's basically going to look like a clock. So I didn't quite leave 6 inches on the left and the right because the blanket is longer than it is wider. So I just left 2 inches on the left and the right. I used my ruler to lay the 2 inches, and then I placed the 3. I basically tried to find the center of the 3 from the top to the bottom and laid that across where the pin was, which is the center of the blanket, and did the same thing across to the 9. Now, as far as the rest of them are concerned, you're gonna have to eyeball it. I really did think there are many different ways. If this was going to be a perfect circle, absolutely, you could set a string and a pin, and you can pinpoint exactly where you want each one to be. But basically, I'm just laying them out and I'm eyeballing them. I'm trying to make them even. You know, I want the 4 to be across from the 8 evenly, and I want the 5 to be across from the 7 evenly, and I want the spaces between the 8 and the 7 and the 7 and the 6 to be even, you know, so you just basically want to figure out where they're going to be, and you want them to be aesthetically pleasing. Do I want this to be like an oval, like the top of an egg or the bottom of an egg? Do I want it to be more rounder or more pointier? And that's totally your aesthetic, your idea. How you guys want to do it is totally up to you. You know, I love to leave the design in the individual's hands. That is what makes this individual. So the way I'm pinning these is I'm not pinning through the numbers. I'm pinning over the numbers. So I'm pinning into the fleece, I'm laying the pin over the number and back into the other end of the fleece. And I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. First of all, the numbers being so thin, if I pin through them, they'll move. They'll be adjusted. They'll wrinkle and then they'll pull up. And when I go to sew them, that won't be good. They'll move around. But the way we do it like this is much easier. And you'll see later when we sew it that we did lose a number, but we're just going to place it back at the end when we're done. The other thing is, for my design to make this unique and fun, is I made my one crooked. I actually did it on purpose, so I just wanted it to be quirky. I don't know exactly what about it being off, not perfectly lined up or whatever makes me feel like it's quirky. I'm not really sure, but I just did, and it looked cute, and I just left it. So you want to do the same thing with the top. You want to make sure that your 10 is across from your 2, and you want to make sure your 11 is across from your 1 and spaced as evenly as possible. And again, pin them the same ways. Okay? And as you notice here, we're only using the top part of the blanket. We're going to embroider to the top part of the blanket before we attach the bottom part of the blanket. That's a whole nother video. I'll show you how we laid it out and everything. The top part of the blanket is this fleece. I've seen these on Etsy in what they call minky fleece, which feels like fur mink. But I just like this regular fleece. It's actually like a nice soft pile. It's just going to make it a little bit easier to embroider too. All right. And then I'm going to have all of my numbers pinned, and then we're going to take it to the sewing machine. Now, the one thing I didn't show you here is to pick your thread color. I went with a hot pink, actually it was a baby pink thread, mostly because my background fabric was baby pink. Not my background with the numbers, I'm sorry, the back of the blanket is going to be baby pink. But you want to match your numbers or your blanket, and that's another thing that's totally a matter of personal preference. You can either use the color of the background of the fleece, or you could use the color of the fabric that you use for the numbers. But I went with pink because I have rainbow numbers, and the back of the fabric is going to be pink, and I just thought it would be super cute. Now this fabric does have a little sparkle in it, which is nice. But you pick whichever theme, baby theme you're going with, and you want something, again, that will show up on the blanket. All right? And don't forget to pick up the last video. Okay, so I'm going to set this at that pretty 18 that I showed you. So that's S1, and that's 18. So let's see how that looks. And this looks like, yeah, this looks like it goes pretty much down the middle. There's a mark on the presser foot here. I know you can just see my work and not everything around me because it's dark and this light's on. The light, without taking out the light bulb, you can't turn the light off on this machine without turning the machine off. So I apologize. But there's a little mark in the middle of the presser foot that says where the middle needle is going to land. So I'm lining that up with where I want the middle of the thread to land, which is the edge of the fabric. And I'm going to start slowly. Okay, so what I'm finding out is it doesn't actually happen in the middle on this stitch. So I'm moving it over a tiny bit. And you see I'm not pushing and I'm not pulling, I'm letting the machine do it. This way it'll use the same distance of stitches and threading of stitches. Okay, so pick it up and turn it. Oh, I like that. I think I will do that. That's very pretty. And it doesn't really mask the ends. Like if I do, I'll show you it. If I had done just a basic zigzag, sometimes the edges of the fabric gets covered. A lot of times sewing, this is the most difficult thing. What do you do with all your excess fabric, especially when you're sewing on the edges of stuff like this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to back stitch some. I'm going to hold the presser, this reverse. Can you guys see it all? No, you can't. Okay. This is the reverse button, so I'm going to hold it while I press the presser foot, and it's going to walk backwards, and it's going to do the same stitches but backwards. And we just use that as a locking stitch. Okay? So let's see. Thread, get myself a little extra. And I actually do like it. So let me see if I can show you. See if I can show you here. Okay. I do like it a lot, actually. I've learned where, like from where I started to where I finished, I've learned where I want to position the presser foot, where I want the needle to land. I think that that's going to be super, super pretty, and I'm excited. So let's get to sewing the blanket. Whenever you need to move your fabric, you want to make sure the needle is down, because otherwise you'll risk, you know, pulling out too much thread and not getting it even. Oops. Sorry, folks. Okay, so some of these lines are real thin, and I'm thinking I might actually just go over the whole thing, but that's okay. That won't look objectionable since it's so light.
Finding out that to be the best case scenario. Yes, it'll take time. This is not a hot glue kind of project.
Probably could have just gone. Oh no, I have to go the other way. Oh no, I have to go this way. Sorry, I had to think about what I had to do. It's like driving with directions sometimes. See, like that. Like right there, what I just did was bad. The needle is not down, and I moved. Pull my slat back up. Oops. We lost a letter. Let's... Okay, so what I do is I trim here and then I pull the thread underneath. And here is how the 9 looks. And I actually really love it. And then I had an idea while I was doing this, is that maybe I would do each one with a different thread. They definitely have more than 12 different designs. See you in a little bit.